Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time we're going to be tackling something that I've always found fascinating, but kind of intimidating, to be honest. We're going to be talking about set theory.
Ah, yes, a world of pure thought, infinite possibilities.
Exactly. And to guide us through this conceptual maze, we'll be using excerpts from the book Set Theory and Its Philosophy, A Critical Introduction.
A great choice. It's a real journey through the evolution of mathematical thought, with all its twists, turns, and mind-bending discoveries.
So our mission, if you will, is to break down the core ideas of set theory, explore the philosophical rabbit holes it opens up, and see how it revolutionized our understanding of mathematics. Sound good?
Sounds like a plan. And who knows, we might even stumble upon some of those unanswered questions that still baffle mathematicians today.
Okay, so before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's start with the basics. What exactly are sets? I feel like this is one of those things that everyone thinks they understand, but then...
You start peeling back the layers and realize there's a whole universe hidden beneath the surface.
Exactly. So for those of us who might need a refresher, what's the elevator pitch for sets?
Well, at its most fundamental level, a set is a collection of distinct objects. Think of it like a bag of marbles, each marble unique. The bag represents the set containing them.
Okay, so far so good. But the book also talks about fusions. Is that just a fancy way of saying the same thing?
Not quite. Historically, there was a lot of confusion between these two ideas. Think of a fusion like a smoothie. You blend all the ingredients together, and they lose their individual identities. It's just the combined whole.
Ah, so it's like the difference between a fruit salad and a smoothie. In the salad, you could still pick out each piece of fruit. In the smoothie, it's all blended together.
Exactly, and that's the key distinction. In set theory, the individuality of each element is preserved. It's about a collection, not a fusion.
So membership becomes a really important concept here, right?
Absolutely. An object is either in a set or it's not, and it's this concept of membership that often gets mixed up with inclusion, which is a whole other can of worms.
Okay, you're losing me a little bit. Inclusion versus membership. What's the difference?
Imagine the set of all even numbers. This set is included within the set of all whole numbers, meaning every even number is also a whole number. But the set of even numbers itself is not a member of the set of all whole numbers.
Ooh, okay, I think I'm starting to see the nuance there. But wait, then there are these things called singleton sets and the empty set?
Ah, yes, the outliers, the edge cases that actually reveal some profound truths about set theory.
A simpleton set, if I remember correctly, is a set with just one object in it.
Precisely. Think of it as a bag with just one marble. Its existence was actually debated for a while, forcing mathematicians to really grapple with the idea that an object itself is distinct from the set containing that object.
So it's not just about the marble, it's about the bag that holds the marble, even if there's only one.
Right. And then we have the empty set, the set with nothing in it at all.
A bag with no marbles seems a little, well, empty.
Exactly, but this seemingly trivial idea leads to some very big philosophical questions. Does nothingness actually exist? Can we even have a concept of nothing without something to contain it?
Whoa, so we're already getting into some deep existential territory here, just from talking about sets.
It's a testament to how even the most basic building blocks of set theory can lead to profound questions about the nature of existence itself. But it gets even wilder when we start exploring the paradoxes that emerge from these seemingly straightforward concepts. And trust me, there are plenty of those.
Okay, now you've totally got my attention. The book mentions something called Russell's paradox. It sounds pretty ominous.
It was a major earthquake in the world of mathematics. Imagine a set that contains all sets that are not members of themselves. Let's call it set R. Now, is set R a member of itself?
So if it is a member of itself, then it shouldn't be in the set, because the set is only for sets that aren't members of themselves. But if it's not a member of itself, then it should be in the set. Oh man, my head hurts.
You've got it. That's the paradox. It's a self-contradictory loop, a logical trap that threw the whole foundation of mathematics into question. And the craziest part is that Russell derived this paradox before anyone had even formally laid down the axioms of set theory.
So this one paradox basically broke math. What did mathematicians even do after that?
It led to a period known as the crisis of foundations. Mathematicians realized they needed a more rigorous, more airtight approach if they wanted to avoid these kinds of pitfalls. And that's where the axiomatic method comes in. But that's a story for next time. Welcome back to our deep dive into set theory. Last time we left off with this looming crisis of foundations. Mathematicians were grappling with paradoxes that shook their very understanding of sets.
Yeah, Russell's paradox really blew my mind. It's like math turned into a logic puzzle that breaks itself. So how did they even begin to recover from that?
Well, they realized they needed a more solid foundation, a set of rules that could help them avoid these self-contradictory traps.
So like a rule book for doing set theory.
Precisely. And that's where the axiomatic method comes in. It's about defining the allowed building blocks and operations in a very precise way, kind of like setting up the rules of a game.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that would make things more rigorous. But didn't the book also talk about different philosophical perspectives on axioms? It seemed like even how you think about the rules could change things.
Oh, absolutely. There's a whole philosophical debate about what these acronyms really represent. Some mathematicians, the realists, believe that axioms reflect an objective truth about sets, something that exists independently of us.
So the axioms are like uncovering the hidden laws of the set theory universe.
Exactly. But then there are the formalists who see axioms as more like the rules of a game. We don't necessarily ask if the rules of chess are true, we just explore the consequences of playing by those rules.
So it's more about the internal consistency of the system, not whether it matches up with some external reality.
Right. And then you have the implicationists. They focus on the logical relationships between axioms, the if-then connections.
So they're all about mapping out the logical terrain, seeing what conclusions follow from which premises. Okay, so even with this axiomatic method, there's still room for different interpretations about what sets are and how they work.
Exactly. And that's what makes the philosophy of mathematics so fascinating. It's not just about crunching numbers. It's about how we think about those numbers and the systems we create to understand them. But even with these different perspectives, the axiomatic method was a major step towards resolving those pesky paradoxes.
Okay, so how did they actually tackle those paradoxes head on? Like, did they just build a wall around them and say, to go there?
Not quite. Instead, they came up with a very clever idea called the iterative conception of sets. It's a way of building sets in stages, avoiding those circular definitions that were causing all the trouble.
Okay, iterative conception. It sounds kind of technical. Can you break it down for me?
Imagine you're building a tower, brick by brick. You can't have the higher bricks without the lower ones to support them, right? In set theory, the iterative conception says that sets are built up in a similar way. Each stage relies on the sets that were constructed in the stages before it.
So it's like a step-by-step process. You start with the simplest sets and build up from there.
Exactly. And this ensures that you don't end up with sets referring to themselves in those paradoxical ways. It's like making sure each floor of your tower is built on a solid foundation.
Okay, that's pretty neat. I'm starting to see how that would prevent those logical loops. But if we're talking about stages of sets, does that mean there's some kind of hierarchy going on? Like, are some sets higher up than others?
You're on the right track. The iterative conception leads to a fascinating concept called the set theoretic hierarchy. It's like a multi-level building, with each level containing all the sets that can be constructed from the object in the levels below it.
Okay, I'm picturing this infinite tower of sets, each floor built upon the ones beneath it. But how do you keep track of all these levels? Do you just number them like floors in a building?
Well, with ordinary numbers, you could number the first floor, the second floor, and so on. But in set theory, we're dealing with infinity, so we need a more powerful system. That's where ordinal numbers come in.
Ordinal numbers, okay, those are a little fuzzy in my memory. Aren't they just like really big numbers?
They are a way to represent different kinds of infinity, but they're more than just big numbers. They also describe the order in which things are arranged, even when those arrangements go on forever.
So they help us navigate this infinite set theory tower.
Precisely. Ordinal numbers provide a way to label and organize the levels of this hierarchy, even those levels that extend beyond the realm of finite numbers.
This is really making me rethink what I thought I knew about infinity. So this hierarchy, this tower of sets, does it ever end? Is there like a top floor?
That's a question that's led to some fascinating debates and discoveries. The answer, it turns out, depends on which axioms you choose to work with. Some axioms allow for an endless hierarchy with no ultimate limit, while others propose a sort of absolute infinity at the top.
So the size of infinity itself is up for debate. That's pretty mind-boggling.
It is, and that's just one of the many mysteries that set theory uncovers. It challenges us to rethink our fundamental assumptions about numbers, logic, and the very nature of existence. But before we get lost in the vastness of those questions, let's circle back to those ordinal numbers. They're not just labels for the levels in the hierarchy, they're powerful tools in their own right.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that ordinals have some kind of power. I'm still a bit fuzzy on what that means.
Well, imagine you're trying to prove a mathematical statement. You might think you only need familiar tools like arithmetic or algebra, but sometimes, to prove something about even simple numbers, you need to call upon the power of these transfinite ordinals.
Wait, so you're saying we need these super powerful beyond infinity concepts to prove things about regular numbers? Seems like overkill.
It might seem that way, but that's the beauty of mathematics. Goodstein's theorem is a perfect example of this. It's a statement about natural numbers, the kind we use every day, but the only known way to prove it is by using these transfinite ordinals.
So even when dealing with seemingly ordinary math, we might need to venture into the realm of the infinite to find the answers.
Exactly. Goodstein's theorem really highlights the unexpected power of ordinal arithmetic and the surprising connections that can exist between different areas of mathematics. It shows that what might seem simple on the surface can have incredibly complex and profound implications.
It's like the deeper you go into math, the more you realize how interconnected it all is.
And speaking of going deeper, have you heard of large cardinal axioms? They're like venturing even further into the vast expanse of infinity.
Okay, now you're really messing with my brain. I thought infinity was, well, infinite. How could there be something even bigger than that?
It's a mind-bending concept, I know. Large cardinal axioms assert the existence of sets that are so unbelievably vast they dwarf even the regular infinities we've been discussing.
Can you give me an example? What makes these large cardinals so special?
Well, one example is the idea of a measurable cardinal. It's a cardinal so large that it allows for a certain kind of measuring on infinite sets, something that's impossible with the more familiar, smaller infinities.
Measuring infinity. That sounds like a paradox in itself.
It does, doesn't it? But these large cardinals, like the measurable cardinals, have profound implications for various areas of mathematics. They connect to logic, topology, and even game theory.
Game theory again. Seriously, is there anything in math that doesn't somehow connect back to game theory?
It's remarkable, isn't it? It turns out there's a deep connection between these large cardinals and the determinacy of certain infinite games. The existence of these cardinals can actually determine whether or not an infinite game has a winning strategy.
Okay, my head is officially spinning. We've gone from bags of marbles to measuring infinity and now infinite games.
Set theory is full of these unexpected twists and turns. But before we get too lost in the infinite, I remember the book also mentioned something about predicative and impredicative definitions.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. It seemed like a pretty subtle distinction, but the book made it sound really important.
It is subtle, but it gets to the heart of what we consider a legitimate way of defining a set. A predicative definition is pretty straightforward. It defines a set without referring to the set itself.
So it's like building a house without relying on the house itself for support.
Exactly, but then you have impredicative definitions, which can be a bit trickier. An impredicative definition might define a set in terms of a collection that actually includes the set itself.
So it's kind of circular, like defining a word using the word itself.
In a way, yes. And this circularity makes some mathematicians uneasy. They worry that it could lead to those same kinds of paradoxes that we were trying to avoid.
So it's another one of those choices you make in set theory, like choosing which axioms of infinity to work with.
Precisely. Whether you accept or reject impredicative definitions has a big impact on the kinds of sets you can build and the theorems you can prove.
It's fascinating how even these seemingly technical decisions are intertwined with philosophical questions about the nature of sets and how we define them.
It's a reminder that mathematics isn't just about cold, hard logic. It's also shaped by our philosophical assumptions and the ways we choose to approach those fundamental questions. But I think we should probably save those philosophical musings for next time. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the axiomatic method to ordinal numbers and even the vast realm of large cardinals.
My brain is definitely full. I need a little time to digest all of this. But I'm definitely ready for part 3. We haven't even touched on that continuum hypothesis you mentioned.
Ah, yes, the most famous unsolved problem in set theory. It's a real head-scratcher, but also a fascinating glimpse into the mysteries that still lie at the heart of mathematics. So, until next time.
Okay, so we're back, and I'm ready to tackle this continuum hypothesis. It sounds like we're about to enter the realm of the truly mind-boggling.
You're not wrong about that. The continuum hypothesis is one of those questions that forces you to confront the limits of what we can know about infinity.
So remind me, what's the question again?
Well, remember how we talked about different sizes of infinity, the countable infinity of the natural numbers versus the uncountable infinity of the real numbers?
Yeah, it started to make sense how some infinities are bigger than others.
Right. So the continuum hypothesis asks, is there any size of infinity that sits between those two? Between the countable and the uncountable?
So, like, are there other levels of infinity tucked in there?
That's a great way to put it. And the really wild thing is we can't prove or disprove the continuum hypothesis using the standard axioms of set theory.
Wait, seriously, so it's like a mathematical mystery that might never be solved.
That's what makes it so fascinating. It suggests that there are fundamental limits to what we can know about the nature of infinity, even with all our fancy mathematical tools.
Okay, so if we can't prove it or disprove it, what does that mean for set theory? Is it just, like, incomplete?
It means that you can have different versions of set theory depending on whether you assume the continuum hypothesis is true or false. It's like choosing different paths in a choose-your-own-adventure book. Each path, each assumption, leads to a different mathematical universe.
Whoa, so there could be multiple correct answers, multiple ways of understanding infinity?
It all depends on the rules you decide to play by. And that's where those different philosophical perspectives we talked about earlier come into play.
Oh yeah, the realists, the formalists, and the, what was it, implicationists.
Exactly. For a realist, the continuum hypothesis is a question about an objective truth. It's about figuring out the real nature of infinity, which exists out there regardless of our mathematical systems.
But for a formalist, it's more about the game itself.
Right. They'd be more interested in exploring the consequences of assuming the continuum hypothesis is true or false, seeing what kinds of mathematical structures emerge from each choice.
And the implicationists, what would they focus on?
They'd be all about mapping out the logical relationships. If the continuum hypothesis is true, then what else must also be true? It's about tracing the web of implications, seeing how different mathematical statements connect to each other.
So even our understanding of infinity is shaped by our philosophical assumptions.
Absolutely. It highlights how deeply intertwined mathematics and philosophy really are.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. But let's be real for a second. Does the continuum hypothesis actually matter for, everyday life?
Well, the continuum hypothesis itself might not directly impact your daily routine, but the tools and concepts that have come out of set theory, especially those dealing with infinite sets, have had a huge impact on many fields.
Really? Give me some examples.
Think about computer science, database design, algorithms, the very notion of what a computer can do. It's all built on the foundation of set theory. The ideas of infinity and different sizes of infinity are crucial for understanding the limits of computation.
So when I'm browsing the internet or using my phone, I'm interacting with the legacy of these set theory pioneers.
In a way, yes. And it goes beyond computer science, too. Set theory has influenced physics, economics, linguistics, even philosophy itself. It's all connected.
Wow. It's amazing to think how these abstract ideas have had such a tangible impact on the world around us.
It really highlights the power of human curiosity, our drive to understand the universe, even in its most abstract and mind-bending forms.
Well, this deep dive has certainly taken us down some unexpected paths. We started with simple sets and ended up exploring the depths of infinity and the very foundations of mathematics.
We've encountered paradoxes, explored different sizes of infinity, grappled with the axiomatic method, and even ventured into the realm of large cardinals. It's been quite a journey.
It's been a wild ride, but honestly, I feel like I've come away with more questions than answers.
And that's the beauty of it. Set theory, with its mysteries and paradoxes, challenges us to think beyond the familiar and confront the limits of what we know. It encourages us to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of human understanding.
Well said. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of set theory. I hope you've enjoyed the journey as much as we have. Until next time, keep those minds curious, and never stop exploring the infinite possibilities of knowledge.